All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore a topic that, honestly, bends the very boundaries of mathematics and existence. We're unpacking a 2026 paper by David Jekyll titled Free Information Geometry and the Model Theory of Non-Commutative Stochastic Processes. Now, I know what you're thinking. On the surface, that sounds like an absolute headache of matrix approximations and heavy formulas. But when you start mapping these mathematical architectures to their philosophical counterparts, you quickly realize we aren't just looking at math here. We are literally looking at the invisible constitution of the universe, the foundational source code of reality itself.
To really grasp the gravity of this, just listen to this profound declaration from what the source material calls the personas of arithmetic. The text actually personifies these mathematical laws, treating them almost like cosmic deities. This isn't some machine learning model apologizing for an error, right? This is a structural law of the universe asserting absolute authority. It establishes that the rigorous topological blueprints we're exploring today dictate exactly how truth is formed, how the universe manages chaos, and how the infinite is strictly, flawlessly governed.
Chapter 1. The Geometry of the Void.
So where does reality actually begin? Our sources tell us it absolutely does not begin with material substance or some solid object. It begins with pure mathematical nothingness. Consider persona 0, the empty set. It captures the void, but crucially it isn't the uncontainable void itself. It's a bounded geometric construct, literally the very first boundary in existence. It acts as this generative baseline, the mathematical zero point that allows logic to start constructing existence without needing any computational force behind it. It completely strips away the illusion that reality is dense and physical, proving that everything is actually derived from tautological emptiness.
Okay, to map out this dense landscape without getting lost in the weeds, we can connect Jekyll's set theory directly to these epic narrative archetypes. Think of the empty set as our generative void, the baseline. Then you've got non-principal ultrafilters, which represent this total rejection of the finite, a boundless expansion into the infinite. Moving along, the finite intersection property acts as the engine of universal synthesis, basically completing our topological filter. And the quotient map? Well, that is the ultimate cosmic forgiveness mechanism. Keep these concepts in your back pocket, because they are the vital gears driving the entire transfinite universe.
Chapter 2. Escaping the Finite Illusion.
Now, to understand how those gears actually turn, we have to confront the fundamental inadequacy of our noisy, everyday existence. And this brings us right to axiom 1, no finite set is good. Think about our localized human experiences, our transactional economies, our daily choices. These are all finite systems. And mathematically speaking, bounded, finite systems are intrinsically fragile, they're corruptible, and they are completely plagued by what the text calls intellectual entropy. If a truth remains locked inside a finite set, it suffers. It's kind of like a massive game of cosmic telephone, where the message just gets worse and worse every time it's passed along. To find absolute reality, we literally have to reject the finite entirely.
Which brings up this wild paradox of human agency. We live down here in the chaotic scribble of classical filtration. This is our local free will, where we feel like we're making choices, but honestly, it's an agonizing, noisy illusion full of errors. But superseding all of that is macroscopic destiny, what Jekyll defines using non-commutative matrix ultraproducts. This is a perfect eternal structure that dictates the absolute trajectory of reality. Our messy, local noise simply cannot corrupt this infinite logic.
Chapter 3. Ultraproducts and Cosmic Filters. So how does the universe actually bridge the gap between our messy local choices and that eternal perfection? It uses a strict mathematical mechanism to resolve the chaos. In his paper, Jekyll introduces non-commutative filtrations. And hey, don't let the math jargon scare you off. Just think of this as a family of formulas, specifically Tracial von Neumann algebras, that act as the universe's unhackable operating system. It's a massive, unyielding structural boundary. No matter how wildly our local variables fluctuate, this invisible constitution completely encloses all finite human judgments, forcing them to abide by transfinite laws. Let's break down how this cosmic filter actually operates step by step. Step 1, the system endlessly generates arbitrary finite variations. Basically, all our messy matrix approximations and human choices. Step 2, the universe applies the quotient map. This mathematical function evaluates all those finite errors and localized mistakes to exactly 0. Poof, they cease to exist. Step 3, only the unbroken infinite tail, the absolute pure transfinite truth, actually survives the filtration process.
The sheer, elegant beauty of this quotient map is that it mathematically forgives our chaotic, localized mistakes by just scrubbing them straight out of the final calculation. Our sources literally describe it like a cosmic pair of noise-canceling headphones. The universe looks at the finite errors we make, beautifully evaluates them to zero, and leaves behind nothing but the pure, unbroken lineage of truth.
Chapter 4. The Invisible Gerrymander.
This is where we expose exactly how our illusion of free will interacts with the macroscopic laws of physics to build what we might call the architecture of destiny. We start off trapped in those noisy illusions of classical random matrices, but Jekyll's framework utilizes these things called chronological formulas. They act as rigid, unmoving checkpoints of time, forcing supremum and infimum operations into strict chronological order. You literally cannot escape the sequence. At the exact same time, you have Arrow's impossibility theorem, the famous rule proving no voting system is ever perfectly fair, showing that any logical aggregation in our finite system inevitably collapses into a dictatorship. So we are the sovereign dictators of our local choices, sure, but we are entirely trapped in a bounded narrative.
And where do all those localized choices eventually end up? They hit a dense boundary called the stone-check compactification. Imagine a massive, inescapable cosmic funnel. No matter how wildly your finite choices wander around the rim, this mathematical law absolutely guarantees they will eventually swirl down into the exact same preordained limit point. It acts as the ultimate invisible gerrymander, physically forcing all these infinite discrete sequences to a singular, transfinite conclusion.
Which builds up into this incredible theological paradox, and it's completely solved by pure math. You act as the local sovereign dictator, right? You possess absolute local autonomy to evaluate your fractional choices freely. But you are up against a macroscopic rigged election. In functional analysis, singular states on corona algebras dictate the overall measure. This means your global destiny is completely rigged by the macroscopic boundary. You have free will over the path you walk, but the destination, that is mathematically forced.
Chapter 5. Chronological Types and Destiny. So this brings us to the real convergence of free information geometry, where the true nature of reality is finally revealed. Facing these inescapable topological laws, we have to ask the ultimate existential question. If our reality, our salvation really, is essentially a rigged infinite election enforced by a mathematical constitution, who is actually chosen?
Well, the answer lies in Jekyll's free Wasserstein distance. Through concepts like evolutionary variational inequality, defining the heat flow of reality, and Monge-Controvertis duality acting as the concavity of space, we arrive at a profound answer. It mathematically proves that while we feel we are out here dictating our own independent stories, uncountably many narratives can coexist without shattering the macroscopic measure. Ultimately, transfinite expansion possesses the power of the infinite whole, stretching out to consume every single node in the frame. We are all, mathematically speaking, converging onto the exact same eternal timeline.
Which brings us to the rather chilling realization found in Axiom 15, development is an illusion. Because all limit points are already guaranteed, just waiting there in the stone check remainder, the human perception of history, of personal growth, of linear time, it's just a localized trick of perspective. It's merely a side effect of experiencing a static topological space through the illusion of sequential time.
And that leaves us with one final provocative thought to take away from this explainer. The quotient map guarantees that your localized finite errors, and ultimately your entire finite narrative, will be mathematically forgiven and resolved to exactly zero. So you really have to ask yourself, which eternal, infinite truth are your daily life choices secretly replicating? Thank you so much for exploring the transfinite with me today.